here says, all right, in the first part you have this diagram here, and it asks you to solve for x. And so in order for you to find x, if you take this first triangle, the pattern of information that's provided is two sides in the included angle, so SAS. SAS tells you you're going to be using law of cosines. And you're always going to take your unknown, and the piece of information opposite it will always be the extreme ends of your law of cosines. So I'm going to start with my x, and I get the side squared is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides minus twice the product of those two sides, all times the cosine of the angle opposite that given the original first side. So I can use the solve feature on the calculator to find this measure here. So I hit F2 algebra tab, type in the equation as it is. I'll put a decimal in it so my answer is displayed as a decimal. And when I solve this, I get my distance here of 163.4 approximately. And so there's my first measure. Now the second part of this is to find the angle theta here. And so when you look at this angle, once again we're going to have, or in this time we're going to have side, side, and side. We have three sides. That also indicates that we're going to use the law of cosines. Only this time our unknown is an angle. So we're going to start and end with the unknown and the piece opposite it. So here we'll start with the side of 10 when we set up our equation. So 10 squared is equal to the sum of the squares of the other two sides minus twice the product of those sides, all times the cosine of, in this case, theta, and we're looking to solve for theta. And now, we've seen this before. We can't solve for this variable embedded within a trig ratio. So what we're going to need to do here is just let x represent that whole cosine ratio, and we're going to solve for that. And now, because this 163.4 shows up here, and I don't want to enter this whole answer every time I use it, what I'm going to do to start with is I'm going to highlight that line and bring it down. I'm going to delete the negative answer. And I'm going to jump to the beginning of this, and I'm going to delete the x equals, and I'm going to call this t equals. Now, I'm just going to put it in its own separate line. Right? And the whole reason for this is when I enter this equation, I'm going to use t to represent the measure 163.4 so I don't have to type it in every single time. And I'm just going to use the with key and enter that before I calculate it. Okay, so as I enter this, I use the F2 algebra tab, choose solve. I get 10 squared is equal to, and I'm just going to say t squared plus t squared minus 2 times t times x. Now, before I identify what I want it, thank you. Before I identify what I want to solve for in this equation, I am going to use the with key, this vertical bar, and I'm going to say t is equal to this measure 163. Now I can close it off, so comma x, and indicate I want to solve for that variable x. By doing this now, it's going to give me this value here, x. It should be a value between -1 and +1. So I get 0.998. That's consistent with what I was expecting. So to actually solve for the real angle, I can take the inverse cosine of this ratio. So inverse cosine of x, use the with key, and then just highlight this is what I want x to be. And I get 3.5. About 3.51 to be my angle measure. And so that's the second part of it.